Hey folks, we are going to start digging into Article 1 of the Constitution dealing with the legislative branch. I'm actually here with Mrs. Bagwell. She is listening to this and going to tell me how I do as we break down some of these sections. Now, we're going to go through sections 1 through 10, but we're going to pull out Section 8, and Mr. Sims is going to talk to you about that one because it is kind of the most involved and most important one. We're going to spend just some time talking about Article 1, Section 8 itself. This is the Capitol building in Washington, D.C., so we're going to dive into what happens in this place. Article 1, Section 1 starts out by saying all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and a House of Representatives. So we have what is called a bicameral, not bicamel, that's a camel with two humps, bicameral Congress. So that means we've got two houses. We've got the Senate and we've got the House of Representatives. You remember that is because of the Great Compromise. You have one house, the Senate, where every state is represented equally, which meant that those small states didn't feel like they were getting picked on by the big states. But in the House of Representatives, you've got the larger states having more representatives in there, so they felt like there was some advantage to having all those people and all that land. So we've got two different houses, and they've got different things that they're going to be doing. One thing in Article 1 that the Congress can do is they have the power to investigate and compel cooperation in investigation. And we've seen this actually used quite a bit here during the last 4 years. There have been a lot of investigations on both sides of the aisle, from Democrats and Republicans, looking into different aspects of interference in the election, different dealings of people in foreign countries, things like that. And so Congress is supposed to have the ability to investigate in anything that involves the legislative process. So all they've got to do is prove that it has something to do with the legislative process, and they can also compel cooperation, which means they can call witnesses and make them come in and testify. Now, this has been kind of an issue with the Congress and the current administration. In the current administration, saying, "Well, we're not going to let our people, come in and testify," and so it's had to go to the third branch of government, the court system, to kind of see which way it's going to go. Probably the biggest decision this summer was one with the president's tax returns, and with the judicial branch saying no, he does have to share that information with Congress, and so probably sometime after the election, he will have to give up those documents that folks have been wanting to see. The House of Representatives is all set up in Article 1, Section 2. This is Trey Hollingsworth. He is our representative. You have to be 25 years old to be a representative in Congress. You have to have been a citizen of the United States for 7 years, and you have to reside in the state you represent. And so if you fill those qualifications and you can get yourself elected, then you can be a member of the House of Representatives. Like I said, Congressman Hollingsworth, his job consists of representing the people from the 9th District of Indiana. If you do the math, every representative, there are 435 of them, have around 700,000 constituents that they're serving. Now, that's an awful lot of people to try and represent, but that's what each one of them has. Congressman Hollingsworth, for his job, makes about $174,000 a year. Just for being a representative. Now he's got other interests and things to be sure. You got to be pretty wealthy to hold one of these offices, but that's the base salary for people in Congress. The House of Representatives has a leader called the Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House now is a lady named Nancy Pelosi. She's a representative from the state of California. The Speaker of the House is third in line for the presidency of the United States. So the President, the Vice President, something happens to both of them, then the Speaker of the House would become President of the United States. The Reapportionment Act of 1929 said that there were going to be 435 members of the House of Representatives, and ever since then, they have just been moving around during censuses the number of representatives from each state. Like I said, when I was a kid, Indiana had 10 congressional districts and 10 representatives. We lost population. Some other places gained it, and so they moved us down to 9. The Speaker of the House is elected by usually by the majority party. So that's how Nancy Pelosi became Speaker of the House. If it was a Republican majority in the House, then the Republicans would elect the Speaker of the House. One of the big powers the House of Representatives has, and one of those checks and balances, is the power of impeachment. 3 presidents in our history have been impeached. It means they are charged with a crime in the House of Representatives, and the Senate hears that particular case. We've actually had something like 35 people have been impeached by the House of Representatives over time. One was actually a justice of the Supreme Court, a fellow named Samuel Chase, and he was impeached because they said he was using his judicial powers to try to basically legislate. So he was stepping out of his lane. He doesn't get convicted. One guy that did, a guy named Senator William Blount, actually way back in like Thomas Jefferson days, this guy bought up a ton of land in the West and was trying to land speculate that the United States would be stretching there, and so using his power to have some shady business dealings, and so he actually was impeached and kicked out of the Senate. So a couple of cool little stories of impeachment there. The Senate, Article 1, Section 3, deals all about the Senate. You have to be 30 years old to be a senator. You have to have been in the United States for 9 years, or a citizen of the United States for 9 years, and you have to be a resident of the state you represent. These 2 guys are our senators. The guy on the left is Mike Braun. The guy on the right is Todd Young. Todd Young is our senior senator. Means he's been there the longest. Mike Braun just got elected 2 years ago. But both of them are pretty new to the Senate. Todd Young's in his first term, and like I said, Mike Braun just started his. Their constituents are all of the people of Indiana, so they are available to any of us to ask for questions, help, things like that. These guys have to serve all 5 million plus people of the state. They get the same salary that a representative does, so $174,000 a year. These guys get a little more job security, though. They've got 6-year terms, whereas our representatives have 2-year terms. So that's got that's the basic makeup of the Senate. Now, the vice president is technically in charge of the Senate. It's one of the duties given to him by the Constitution, one of the few duties, actually. But most of the time, the vice president isn't there. The Senate elects a president pro tempore of the United States Senate. I found out something fascinating as I was building this up, and this is usually, or has been for the past several decades, the oldest or the longest serving senator from the majority party. So right now, the president pro temp is from the Republican Party because they have a majority in the Senate, and that's who gets to be there. He can do like the Robert's Rules of Order stuff and conduct business in the Senate. They said that most of the time he doesn't. Most of the time they let some of the junior senators with the need to get experience do some of that stuff. So I thought that was pretty neat that they're kind of getting some on-the-job training. The main man in the Senate, or woman, as it were, is the majority leader. Now today, as I do this in August of 2020, that is Mitch McConnell from our neighboring state of Kentucky. And he really controls what kind of bills come to the floor and how the Senate is going to work. We talked about this already, but there's 2 senators from each state, and that means that there are 100 senators that fill up the Senate chamber. These guys have the power to conduct impeachment trials. We actually saw one of those earlier in 2020. Now, when they do that, they can only remove someone from office. So we talked about the presidents. We talked about that senator. They can only remove somebody from office. They can't send somebody to jail. Now, if they do get impeached and removed from office, then they can be charged with crimes from the judicial system and taken through the legal system that way. But the Senate can't impose those types of penalties. So that's going to take us through the first three sections. Before we get started here with section 4, I'm going to hit pause. That's quite a bit that we've covered, and then put up another video with part 2.